Good afternoon, lovely people. How are you all today? I hope you're well. If you're joining me today, what's the date? I can't remember. It's about the 3rd of June. It's really warm, but we've got we're sort of intermittent cloud, which is great for the jobs I want to do today because I'm going to be doing some planting out. And I tend to prefer to not plant out in blazing sunshine just because I think it's all rather too much of a shock for the plants. So yay to some clouds going by, also to keep me a bit cooler. Now, like I say, here we are, 3rd of June. The madness of May has definitely spilled into June this year. As I was mentioning in the June tour, I'm definitely behind with things. And, well, having done that June tour, after I edited it and before I put it online, I watched it back myself with a notepad and pen to just basically write down every single job that's outstanding. Obviously there are jobs which are ongoing through the summer, weeding, watering, tying in, etc. But the immediate jobs of what is still to be planted or sown, that sort of thing. And looking at that list, it was actually a little bit more extensive than I thought. And where I was thinking, oh, that's an hour's job or that's an hour's job, as I sat looking at my own video and making a note of the jobs, I was thinking, you know what, Vivi, that's a 3-hour job, not an hour's job. So I've rejigged a lot of my week that's coming in order to try and fit in 2 more sessions in the garden. So hopefully this week I can have 4 sort of 4 to 5 hour sessions, and hopefully then that will get me back on top of things, or at least caught up. And then, yay, we're forecast to have rain. Excuse me, tickle. We're forecast to have rain Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And if that happens, it will do us the most beautiful, wonderful favour. Because I'm sure a lot of the slowness is the dryness. Because no matter how much we water, I was mentioning this in a comment to someone, when we water the garden, all we're doing really is keeping the garden alive. It doesn't really thrive on that. It really needs the stuff from above to thrive. So that's the plan for this week, is to just chuck everything in the ground and pray for that rain. Oh my goodness, yes please. So today, not entirely sure how far I'll get, but the plan is to get the tomatoes in and the horizontal squash. Now there is a possibility while I'm filming this afternoon, 2 things. One, we're getting some gusty wind, so we might have some sound issues because of that. But also, as you saw in that June video, with all the Chinooks going over and then all the other jellycopters too, I had completely forgotten about you-know-who's visit to our shores. So of course it was all to do with that. And that has continued over this weekend. So for instance, last night I was down here watering about 7:30 in the evening. Beautiful, oh, bye-bye Rosie. A beautiful, still, quiet, calm evening, and then skies started again. And it's been going on all morning this morning too. So if it happens while we're out there, I'm just going to do my best to ignore it. If it's too noisy, we'll stop for a minute and then carry on. But I'm just sort of saying that as an explanation. So if you hear lots of stuff going on in the background, it's because we've been tangoed. So, yeah, I think, there's one now. I think without further ado, it's time to get in the garden because there's a lot to do. Like I say, hopefully those tomato and horizontal squash, but I'm going to push it today, and if I can, I'm going to go into the vertical squash bed too. Oh, and just to say, you know, I was talking about my successional sowings of salads. I was going to do some in June and some in July. I've actually decided that I'm going to do both of them in June instead, as in now. My rationale for that is because I want to get that ground covered. I don't want to leave bare ground. And then in July, instead of doing a separate bed, I will then quite simply, where there are any gaps, sew in the gaps. So I'll still have a bit of a succession, but hopefully it will mean that I'm going to have all that soil covered, hopefully, if we get the rain as well, by the end of June. Don't know if I'll get that far today. Let's get stuck in. Oh, hurrah! Finally time to get something in the ground. I've been longing for this moment. Oh my goodness. Yeah, like I say, normally this would have been about 2 weeks ago. Never mind. So, just a quick word on the bed preparation for these tomatoes, because I've got this one bed, that one bed. These are my new mini permanent beds. Each bed will have 2 rows in. They had slightly different preparation, purely because of what they had growing in them last year. So, the bed that you're standing in, that had the flint corn in it, and I did the final bit of harvesting of that. I think it was about early November. Now, I didn't dig, hey Poppy, I didn't dig that bed out. I sort of forked the last of the roots of the flint corn out. All of the green and yellow material, I chopped it up really quite finely, spread it across the top of the whole bed, got it covered in cardboard, left it fallow. This bed had the celery and celeriac in it until it's about February. We are having some gusts. Never mind. Yeah, so I had the celery and celeriac until February. Again, I didn't dig the bed, but I rather sort of forked the vegetables out. At that stage, I didn't have any cardboard or anything, but I did manage to get quite a thick layer of leaves on the top. So when I came to prepare the beds about a month ago, with this bed with the leaves, any that hadn't rotted, I've basically just raked them off, chopped them up fine, and then I've used them to mulch the onions because they needed a mulch. Both beds, essentially, I didn't really dig them, gave them a little tickle in places, but yeah, essentially I just sort of raked them over, raked some chicken poo in, left them open for one day when we had some rain to get some moisture in there, got them covered again. So, I don't know, it will be interesting to see this year because I've got the same varieties of tomatoes in one of those rows as I have here. It'll be interesting to see what sort of difference there is. Oh, I should have said, with the flint corn, when I came to uncover that bed in April, whenever it was, all of that flint corn leaf material had pretty much all gone, composted down, been taken by the worms. So yeah, so in other words, that bed had compost over the winter, this bed just had the leaves. Right, okay, so tomatoes. I love my tomatoes. Now, I've just put a load of sticks in for now, purely to get my spacing right, because this bed is ever so slightly narrower than all my other beds, but generally I know that I can get about 8 plants in a row. So because also with the bean arches this year, they've come in a little bit further, I just put the sticks in as a guide, just double check that I can still get 8 in. Last year was an anomaly. I had all sorts of varieties given to me by friends because mine were a bit of a whitewash or a whiteout. Is that the right expression? Never mind. This year I'm back to my good old favourite of Gardener's Delight. It's such a common bog standard tomato, there's nothing fancy about it. I grow it because it's a prolific cropper, it's great for bottling and storing, but also, and back to my markers, because it's a cordon, in other words it's a tomato that's going to go up as opposed to a bush variety which is going to go out. It just means I can get more in my garden than if I was doing all bush varieties. over the years I've worked out that 32 tomato plants is enough for me to have some fresh throughout the summer, but essentially that's enough for me for my bottling requirements to keep me in tomatoes for an entire year. Yay! Now, at the moment they look very, very tiddly and spindly. This is always the case for me because I'm raising them indoors with not the best light, so they always get a little bit leggy, but we'll solve some of the legginess by planting them deeper. I'll come to that when I come to plant. And they were a little bit pale and yellowing, but what's great is after 10 days of being outside, well, in the cold frame, but with all the windows open, all of the tops, and hopefully this is what you're finding with your toms too, where you see the growth in the top is a much darker greener, that's great. That's what we want. That means they're perking up and picking up. So yes, tiddly, pathetic looking specimen at the moment. I have this every year. Oh, another gust. The first time, it worried me. I've got used to it now. It's not a worry. So, the actual spacing is probably about 40 centimetres apart, which is really stingy, but I'm stingy. It works for me, so I'm not worried. So, now, this will be interesting. I haven't been into this soil now for 6 weeks. It's beautiful. It's crumbly, it's lovely. I'll give you a closer up look in a second. So I'm just getting quite a nice deep hole ready because I am going to plant it deeper than the pot that it was in. I know a lot of you will know this, but for any of you this is your first year, we can do this with tomatoes because if you look at the very towards the bottom of the stem of your plant, you'll see lots of little teeny tiny fine white hairs sticking out. Once they're below the surface of this soil, they're actually going to become roots. They're going to go out and find nutrients and water. And of course, the more roots we've got on a plant, the better. They have more capacity for taking up water and nutrients. So brilliant. So what I'm going to do with this one is my bottom 2 leaves. I'm going to take them off. I'll put in the compost so I can get it nice and deep. Just into the very bottom of my hole, I'm going to mix in, that's a rock, I'm going to mix in a little bit of Epsom salts. I do this each year. It's thought to help against blossom end rot, which is, most people think it's a calcium deficiency. It's not actually a deficiency. There is calcium in the plant, but the plant can't move it to where it needs it to, which is the fruit. Epsom salts are magnesium, calcium, but it's thought that the plant taking up this magnesium, it then helps the plant to transport the calcium around itself. So I always do it. It's always worked great for me. Well, I say always do it. I started doing it about maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Great results. Last year I did experiment with a couple that went in at the very last minute that I didn't add any Epsom salts to, and you know what? For the first time in years, I had blossom end rot. So it was quite a surprise to me, but it firmly convinced me of the need to carry on doing the Epsom salts. And you know what? It's certainly not going to harm it, so why not? I should have just pointed out as well, in the middle of this bed you can see all that cardboard that was across the whole bed. I've kind of folded it up, laid it down the middle, and it's now a receptacle, a storage place for all my bricks, so I don't have to keep moving them around the garden all year. That's hopefully going to keep some weeds down in the middle, a bit of moisture retention. Once I've got all these tomatoes in today, I'm going to give them all a really good soak, and then, again, just under where you are, I've got a big mound of grass clippings from my communal mowing the other day. I'll get it all mulched. I'm so happy. I'm so happy today to be doing this. Right, cracking on. Actually, I'm going to bring you in close so you can see, a little bit closer so you can see what I'm up to. So hopefully you can see on this one what I mean about the darker green. You see this new growth in the top that's been starting since they've been in the cold frame, compared with this poor weedy looking growth that was going on indoors at home. This is what I'm looking for, this is what I'm happy about. And really close up, can you see on there those tiny little fine white hairs on the stem down here? See, that's what I was talking about that's what's going to put out its roots sideways, all being well. So again, as with the other one, I'm just going to simply nip off that bottom leaf. At the moment, well, I have spent all winter and spring keeping an eye out for anything that looks like a suitable support for each of these plants, because they will, well, we hope, they should get really quite big. Oh, can you see the soil there as well? Look how it stayed beautifully moist, being covered. It's got a lovely texture to it. Hasn't compacted, it's great. Yeah, I've been on the lookout all winter for some sort of stake support for all the tomatoes and just seeing absolutely nothing. There's my sprinkle of Epsom. So obviously these little tiddly broken canes are going to be nigh on useless within a couple of weeks. But I have just the other day, now can you see how much deeper I've put it in? So here's the level of the soil, and the soil level is right down there, so I've put it in about that much deeper. Yeah, sorry, I noticed the other day on our burn pile that someone's obviously been cutting a tree down, and so I've spotted some sort of branches which look really quite sturdy. However, they're going to need a lot of, they've got lots of side branches on them which will need trimming off, and I don't think I'm going to have time today, so excuse me, dust. I'm just going to focus today on getting everything planted. These will probably all need a bit more tying as well because it is a bit windy, but yeah, focus on getting everything planted, and then in a week or so, when things are a little bit more chilled in the garden, I can come back and delve into the burn pile and hopefully get myself some good stakes. Right, that's 2 in, 30 more to go. Oh, finally. Well, I've got to say that has taken me a ridiculous amount of time to get all my tomatoes in, but I now have 1, 2, 3 rows of 8 of Gardener's Delight, so 24 in total, and then a row of Chadwick Cherry. I've run out of mulch. Of course I've run out of mulch. I'm always running out of mulch. But I'll do some more mowing, or I'll just keep an eye out. Oh, actually, I've just remembered. Which bed was it I was doing? Oh, I think it was when I was clearing that top bed, I raked off it a bag of leaves. So, yes, I think what I'll do is I'll trim those leaves down and put those on here as a mulch. Because you can tell, aside from where I've watered, just look how dry we are. Okay, so good. Tomatoes are in. It has taken me ages. I don't know why it's taken quite so long, but Rome wasn't built in a day. And I've got a barrow full of junk there because my next job, I'm going to start on the squash beds. So in here you can see I've put the sticks in already. I've got 4 markers there. Ooh, windy again. You can probably see as well how this bed that I prepped, this is one of the ex-brassica beds, so it's really quite compact. So I did have to give it a bit of a forking over, but I wasn't too worried about getting it down to a fine tilth, because I'm going to dig a hole for each squash plant and pop it in there. So the tilth, whatever, doesn't matter. So they're going to go in this side, and then I'm going to keep the cardboard wood there as mulch, and then they can sort of sit on top Likewise for this bed, except on this side I'm going to have 2 clumping forms, and then on the far side for more of the spreading type, so that by the summer I won't be using this path at all, but I can sort of reach over to water. Now, because I didn't have any compost on these beds over the winter, what I'm going to do now before I plant is, which is why I've got all my clobber around me. Look, it's one of these days, isn't it, where it's just stuff everywhere. Shadow because it's suddenly bright, stuff. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is, I've got some compost there. I'm going to, in my big red bucket, I'm going to mix up some compost and some chicken pellets, so that when I dig my holes for my squash, I'll put a load of that in the bottom of each hole, plus any of the Epsom salts I've got left, because I like to do that for my squash as well. And and also I need to remember to plant a watering bottle next to each one. So I'd better shut up and get on with things, hadn't I? Who'd have thunk it? I mean, I think probably by the time I've finished doing this bed today, that's probably going to be about 5 hours work, which seems crazy, doesn't it? Oh, but I'm so happy to get these little beauties in. Grow well, my little beauties, grow well. Ooh. Sun's coming out again. Actually, this isn't too bad. I thought it was going to be a bit horrid, this soil. Not too bad. Anyway, so, hole, obviously, and then a good couple of handfuls of this compost chicken poo mix. Squash. This is Wolf and Buttercup. Not Buttercup, Butternut. I haven't actually grown it for a while. Let's face you that way. So it's nice to come back to this after a few years of not having it. And then get that bottle down there. So the where the end of the bottle is, it's tucked just under where, oops, wrong way up, where the roots are going to be. Because of breaking canes, it's one of those days, you know. Hold on. Yeah, the one thing about squash is all the different types of squash, they don't, please don't break, they don't like having their stems wet. So when I'm watering, I'll water directly into the bottle. That's going to get under the roots can go and have a little search for the water. Likewise, when you're planting them, unlike say the tomatoes just done, don't plant them deeper than the pot was. We don't want to put the stems under the soil. In these first sort of few days of their life outside, they will become good, robust plants. Like I say, initially in these first few days, their wee little stems are so sensitive. So, yeah, they don't want to get wet, they don't want to be blown around too much. Probably what I'll do, after I've got them all in, because we are quite windy today, is I'll put a tiny little bit of cane next to each one and tie it to it, just initially to stop it sort of being rocked around in the wind. It has been a bit of a windy day. The reason I've got quite a long stick going down into the bottle is so that, all being well and they grow beautifully, eventually there'll be that much foliage everywhere that I won't be able to see the bottles. So when I'm watering, I'll aim for the stick, boom, and that should take me down to where the bottle is. That's the idea anyway. It's worked for me for a few years, so I don't see why it shouldn't work for me again. you know, I can't tell you how great it feels to finally be getting some plants in the ground. And hopefully, I think like I was saying, right at the top of the video, hopefully by the end of this week, yeah, so by the 7th of June, hopefully I'll feel like I am at the stage where I'm normally at for the 21st of May. Just a little bit late. Never mind, eh? It all gets done in the end, somehow, some way. I think there's quite a few of us this year who are thinking about that. Oh, that's been slightly nibbled. So I'll get all of these in, but I do have backups for everything in the cold frame, so that I certainly hope not, but if I get nibbles of any of these, then hopefully I'll have backups for everything. Yay! Alright, well I'm going to go and get on with this. Actually, before I plant any more, I am going to get some little mini canes for all of these, and I'm going to tie them as I go, rather than leave them out for the next hour or so while I plant everything and they get bashed backwards and forwards in the wind. So I'm going to tie every one as I do it. Yep. Let's go and get some sticks. Goodness me, it's got blustery this afternoon and the light's going. I feel like I've been here forever, but I'm so happy. Oh, brilliant. 4 rows of tomatoes, 3 rows of squash. Hurrah, hurrah, hurrah. That makes me so, so happy. Hey, sweetheart. Oh, just one of my neighbours passing. So, hip, hip, hooray. I love the light at this time of day, the way it just comes through the flowers in the herb bed. Oh, lovely. I think it's time for a bit of a sit down in the shed though. Well, I stopped a little bit abruptly earlier, just because that was one of my neighbours coming down the path and she hasn't been here for ages, so I wanted to stop filming and have a little bit of a catch up with her. But what I wanted to say when I was out with the tomatoes and squash is, it's always great at the end of the day to take a moment to look at what you've achieved, maybe take a photograph, make some notes in your journal. It's nice to look back on that, but I always think I get to the end of a session and I kind of look at what I've done and I think, how has that taken me the best part of 4 or 5 hours? It seems absolutely crazy. So having done all that, and now I've done all my watering, and I've had a couple of little chats with some regulars and some new people came to look at the site today, and they're going to take a plot. Really, really nice pair of women. So yay to new neighbours. Not on my immediate sides, one over. But yeah, all said and done, it's 6 o'clock. I've missed a whole day of tennis. Good grief. But I'm so, so delighted to get those plants in the ground at last. I'm starting to feel like, oh yeah, I might have a garden this year. There's something for me about that moment of the tomatoes going in. I just love it. And today, at the end of today, looking at that bed, there's still obviously the cucumbers, the peppers, all of that. But suddenly, properly for the first time this year, it feels like my garden again. Oh, I love it, I love it, I love it. So in a few days, when all my other planting's been done, have a day off from the garden, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to raid that burn pile, as I mentioned right back at the beginning of this video, to get some of those big strong branches out to get in with my tomatoes, because now that they've got their little toes in the soil, ooh, wiggle, 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 they should get going fairly quickly. So, how are you all doing with yours? I know there's a load of you from comments in the last couple of videos. You've had rain and chilly temperatures and can't get out there. We've had the opposite, heat and drought. But I hope for all of us that we're finally feeling like the spring is behind us, the madness is behind us, and we're starting to get to a stage where we can actually enjoy watching our plants grow. Yay! And once everything's planted from the deck, I'll be able to sit on the deck again and watch them grow. I can't wait. Anyway, it's high time for me to get myself home, have a nice long hot bath with some Epsom salts, if the tomatoes have left me any. I will see you all again really soon, no doubt, because there's still quite a lot to do. But in the meantime, please take care of yourselves, stay well, keep at it if you're like me and you're a bit behind. If you're on top of things, kick back and enjoy it. I will see you all again really soon. Bye for now.